What if I told you that some of the most breathtaking, enigmatic, and scientifically vital places on this planet are completely off limits, forever? Not in a decade, not in your lifetime, maybe not for anyone outside a select few. These are places where access isn't just restricted, it's denied. Some are protected because they hold fragile ecosystems found nowhere else on Earth. Others shield entire communities that have deliberately chosen to remain untouched by modern society. And then there are those that hide truths so sensitive, so complex, that even the people guarding them may not fully understand what lies within. These are 8 forbidden places you will never be allowed to visit. Mount Weather, Virginia, United States. The United States has its own version of a hidden underground stronghold, but unlike remote Cold War facilities buried deep in isolation, this one sits surprisingly close to the nation's capital. Just 48 miles from Washington, D.C., tucked within the Blue Ridge Mountains of Virginia, lies the Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center. Operated by Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, this highly classified facility is designed for one purpose: to ensure the survival of the U.S. government in the event of a national catastrophe. If the unthinkable were to happen, whether a large-scale attack or a devastating disaster, top officials, including the president and key members of leadership, would be relocated here. From deep underground, they would continue to govern the country. Above ground, the site appears heavily secured but relatively unremarkable. What lies beneath, however, is far more significant. Hidden below the surface is an extensive underground complex that has never been publicly revealed in detail. Those with authorized access have never disclosed its full layout or capabilities. What is known is that it functions as a fully self-contained command center, complete with its own communication networks, infrastructure, and operational systems, independent of the outside world. Mount Weather briefly entered public awareness after the September 11 attacks, when reports suggested that senior officials were taken there as a precaution. Yet its existence had already been acknowledged decades earlier, following a nearby plane crash in the 1970s that drew media attention to the site. Even so, the true scope of what happens inside remains classified. No unauthorized individual has ever entered the facility, and with layers of security protecting its perimeter, no one ever will. Uluru, Australia. In the vast, sunburned heart of Australia, a colossal formation rises abruptly from the desert floor, one of the most iconic natural landmarks on Earth. Known as Uluru, and once widely referred to as Ayers Rock, this Basala sandstone monolith stands over 1,100 feet tall, dominating the surrounding landscape near Alice Springs. For much of the 20th century, Uluru attracted visitors from around the world. Climbing to its summit became a bucket list experience, a symbol of adventure in the Australian outback. But for the Anangu people, the traditional custodians of the land, Uluru is far more than a landmark. It is sacred, a place deeply woven into their cultural and spiritual identity for tens of thousands of years. Despite repeated and respectful requests from the Anangu to avoid climbing, tourism continued. Over time, the steady flow of visitors began to erode the rock's fragile surface. Even more troubling were incidents of disrespectful behavior at the summit, which intensified calls for change. In 2017, a decisive vote was made: climbing Uluru would be permanently banned. The restriction officially took effect in October 2019. Today, visitors are still welcome, but with limits. You can walk designated paths around its base, view it from approved areas, and learn about its cultural significance. But climbing it is no longer allowed. Certain photographs are also restricted out of respect for Anangu traditions, and some imagery has even been removed from Google Earth. Uluru remains as powerful and awe-inspiring as ever, but now, it stands not just as a natural wonder, but as a reminder that some places deserve reverence more than access. Heart Reef, Australia. Off the northeastern coast of Australia lies one of the most extraordinary natural wonders on Earth, the Great Barrier Reef, stretching more than 1,400 miles along the coastline. Hidden within this vast underwater world is a formation so striking it almost looks intentional. Known as Heart Reef, it is a naturally formed coral structure shaped like a near-perfect heart. Encircled by clear, turquoise waters and thriving marine life, Heart Reef quickly became one of the most photographed locations in the world. It drew in countless visitors, snorkelers, divers, and tourists eager to experience its beauty up close. But that popularity came at a cost. The reef is incredibly delicate, and repeated human contact began to take a visible toll. Foot traffic, accidental damage, and environmental stress put the formation at serious risk. Scientists warned that if access continued, the reef could be permanently destroyed in a matter of years. So authorities took action. Today, direct access to Heart Reef is strictly prohibited. No diving, no swimming, no touching. The only way to experience it is from above, by helicopter or seaplane. You can see it, you can admire it, but you will never be allowed to set foot near it, because some of the most beautiful places on Earth can only survive if we stay away. Heard Island, Southern Indian Ocean. Far out in the southern Indian Ocean lies one of the most isolated places on Earth, Heard Island. Located roughly 2,500 miles southwest of Australia and about 2,600 miles southeast of South Africa, it is among the most difficult destinations on the planet to reach. Despite being Australian territory, Heard Island bears no resemblance to the country's familiar coastlines. Instead, it is a harsh, frozen landscape shaped by extreme conditions. Towering above it is Mawson Peak, an active volcano rising over 9,000 feet, and the highest point in all Australian territory. The island is blanketed by dozens of glaciers and encircled by some of the most violent and unpredictable seas on Earth. Even approaching it is a challenge few have ever attempted. But distance alone isn't what keeps people away. Access to Heard Island is strictly prohibited by the Australian government, not only to protect its wildlife, but to preserve an environment that has remained almost entirely untouched by human activity. The island's geology is fragile, and even minimal interference could leave permanent scars. In fact, over the past 50 years, fewer expeditions have reached Heard Island than have traveled to the moon. It is a place so remote, so unforgiving, that it feels as if the planet itself has drawn a boundary, one that humans were never meant to cross. Room 39, North Korea. If these places have captured your attention, consider subscribing. Your support helps bring more stories like this to life. Now we shift from remote natural isolation to something far more controlled, secrecy. Deep inside a government complex in Pyongyang, there is said to be a department known only as Room 39. Established in the late 1970s, it is widely believed to be one of the most secretive financial operations in the world. According to intelligence reports and testimonies from defectors, Room 39 is responsible for managing a vast network of overseas bank accounts, front companies, and international trade activities, generating revenue for North Korea's ruling elite. But here's the problem: none of it has ever been officially confirmed. There are no public records, no formal acknowledgement from the government. Everything we know comes from fragments, defector accounts, intelligence assessments, and investigative analysis. Room 39 is believed to oversee both legitimate enterprises, such as hotels, restaurants, and export businesses, and operations that have led to international sanctions. Experts estimate it brings in hundreds of millions of dollars each year, funds thought to support the country's leadership and possibly its weapons programs. Several nations have sanctioned entities suspected of being linked to it, yet in a country as tightly controlled as North Korea, hard evidence remains nearly impossible to obtain. Room 39 is more than a restricted location. It's a system built in the shadows, one the outside world may never fully understand, and one its creators have no intention of ever revealing. Surtsey Island, Iceland. On November 14, 1963, an extraordinary event began unfolding just off the southern coast of Iceland. Deep beneath the ocean's surface, a powerful volcanic eruption broke through the seafloor, slowly building something the world had never seen before. A brand new island. Over the next 3.5 years, molten rock and ash rose above the waves, forming a chain of small landmasses. Most of them didn't last, quickly worn away by the relentless Atlantic. But one endured. It was named Surtsey, after Surtur, the fire giant of Norse mythology. What made Surtsey truly remarkable wasn't just its origin, but what came next. For the first time in modern science, researchers had a rare opportunity to observe how life begins on completely barren land. No soil, no organisms, just raw volcanic rock. To preserve this once-in-a-lifetime natural experiment, Surtsey was immediately placed under strict protection. Access was limited exclusively to authorized scientists, not because it was dangerous, but because even the smallest human interference could alter the course of what scientists were trying to study. And slowly, life began to appear. First came microscopic organisms, bacteria, fungi, and molds. Then mosses and simple plants took hold. Insects followed. Eventually, birds arrived, bringing seeds and accelerating the island's transformation. Today, dozens of bird species and hundreds of invertebrates have been recorded on and around Surtsey, and the ecosystem continues to evolve. But the island's existence is temporary. Scientists estimate that within the next century, erosion will gradually wear it away, returning it to the sea. Until then, Surtsey remains one of the most carefully protected scientific sites on Earth, a living laboratory where only a handful of people have ever been allowed to set foot. Missouri, Russia. Most forbidden places on Earth are empty, remote islands, sealed bunkers, or abandoned facilities hidden deep underground. But what if an entire town was off limits? A place where thousands of people live and work, yet no outsider has ever been allowed in. That place is Missouri. Tucked away in the southern Ural Mountains, this closed city is believed to have been established in 1979 and officially recognized in 1995. Its population, estimated at around 16,000, is made up entirely of government employees and their families. Access is tightly controlled, the town is surrounded by security checkpoints, and any attempt to approach without authorization is met with immediate force. Very little verified information exists about what actually happens inside Missouri. Most of what we know comes from satellite imagery and intelligence reports. Nearby, there appears to be a massive underground complex carved into the mountains during the Cold War. Some analysts believe it was used to store nuclear warheads. Others have linked it to Russia's so-called dead hand system, an alleged automated defense mechanism capable of launching a nuclear response even if national leadership were eliminated. But without official confirmation, speculation fills the gaps. Rumors range from secret weapons programs to far more extreme theories. And in the absence of facts, the mystery only deepens. What is certain is this: thousands of people live in a town that, to the rest of the world, might as well not exist. Vale do Javari, Brazil. We end our journey in the heart of the Amazon rainforest, the largest tropical rainforest on Earth, where vast stretches of land remain so remote and impenetrable that entire human societies have never been contacted by the modern world. Located in western Brazil, the Vale do Javari indigenous territory spans nearly 30,000 square miles, an area comparable in size to Austria. Within this immense region live some of the last uncontacted tribes on the planet. Estimates suggest at least 14 distinct groups have had zero interaction with the outside world. Their existence has been confirmed through aerial surveys, revealing villages, cultivated clearings, and communities continuing their daily lives, completely unaware of the global civilization beyond the forest canopy. Further research indicates there may be even more groups than originally believed, with total populations possibly reaching around 2,000 individuals. These communities have lived in isolation for centuries, perhaps thousands of years, preserving ways of life that long predate European arrival in the Americas. To protect them, the Brazilian government has enforced strict restrictions. No tourism, no resource extraction, no outside contact of any kind. The reason is simple and critical. These tribes have no immunity to common diseases carried by the outside world. Even brief contact could introduce illness with devastating consequences, potentially wiping out entire populations. In a world defined by constant connection, the Vale do Javari stands as a powerful reminder. There are still places, and people, untouched by modern life. And the greatest responsibility of the outside world is to keep it that way. From a coral reef too fragile for human touch, to a hidden town sealed from the outside world, to entire civilizations living beyond the reach of modern society? Our planet is still full of places we will never see. And maybe that's exactly how it should be. If this opened your perspective, consider subscribing and turning on notifications. There's a lot more out there to discover. See you in the next one.